Thank you so much for watching. Before we get into it today, please make sure you've subscribed to the channel, like this video, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment. Now let's get into it. And we're live. Jayson, thank you for taking the time. I'm super excited to have you on my show, and I know you're a busy man. So again, thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Thanks for having me, Felix. Super excited.
So I told you a few seconds ago, there's a little tidbit, little something that the world doesn't know about you from what's already out there.
I used to play football. I played quarterback from the age of 10 to 14, got kicked off the football team, wrestled 2 years, was pretty good at wrestling, and then decided that, chasing girls and having fun was more important. It's a big regret of mine not playing football, but I was pretty good. I was a quarterback. I was quick on my feet.
I love it. So I want to get into a lot of things because I think that your story is obviously fascinating. I want to start with, a young Jayson Waller. I mean, what is he like? Is he someone who, is a businessman at heart? Is he someone who expects the world? I mean, what's the mindset there?
Well, I grew up in a little less than blue collar. My dad worked for AT&T. He was a blue collar worker, worked at a plant where they made Corning cable. And my mom worked as a cake decorator, third shift usually, at a bakery. So she babysat on the weekends for extra money. And I helped do a paper route. And then I helped my dad do a paper route at night while I went to school. And he got transferred to North Carolina. I grew up in Arizona. He got transferred to North Carolina with his job. And so when we moved there, it was really awkward for me because in Arizona, people didn't really judge you for how much money you have or don't have. It was like a little LA. You were judged by what set you claim or what city you're from or who your homies are, how tough you are. So me wearing Walmart clothes or Target clothes and some beat up Fila's, that was okay. When I moved to North Carolina, it was a little different. My dad, we moved into a trailer park, which is fine, but, people made fun of me. I didn't know that was a thing. And I would go to school and they'd be like, where do you live? I'd be like, oh, Southbrook. They're like, oh, you're in the trailer park? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh. It was just awkward. It wasn't the Southern hospitality you'd like to think of. It was more of a judgmental thing. Like it was always a measuring stick. And I saw my parents struggle so much. We had a little bit of abuse. I mean, my parents had me at a young age. I ain't mad at them. They're better grandparents than they are parents. I love them to death. And, but they had kids at an early age. And so they were struggling learning as they go. And I wouldn't change a thing, but my dad was pretty hardcore and they would, verbally say some things they probably shouldn't say to me and my siblings. But I think it just, you get through it and that's what you know. And I got really motivated at an early age, probably 14 or 15, because I didn't like to go to school where fake Tommy Hilfigers and people say things. I didn't like having a crappy car where me and you, Felix, going out to dinner costs more than the car. I didn't like any of that. I didn't like feeling less than because something I couldn't control as a kid. And I watched my dad struggle so much and he worked his tail off, but he really had nothing to show for it, and I didn't want that life. I told myself at an early age, if horse comes by, I'm jumping on. If I have a way to capitalize, what I learned from him is what not to do. Not saying what he did was wrong. I mean, I get it. I understand. He played the safe route. I always say in life, you got to play to win. You cannot play to not lose, because when you play prevent or you play safety, trying to prevent things and be cautious, you're never going to strike and win. And so I told myself at an early age, I got to take chances. I got to win. And so I got a little taste of sales in high school. I started selling on the phones, home security systems on the phones and credit card protection. And I was one of the top ones at like 40 people on the phones. And I knew I was like, I've got a knack here. I am a natural at sales. I get people to get excited. So that kind of shift, it was that paradigm of me not having much and wanting more and always feeling less than and finding that path. And I used sales as that path.
Now, was the great motivator to get out of, your situation, or was it money? Was it success? I mean, what was driving you ultimately, do you feel like, at that point?
Well, I will tell you, I'm the most competitive son of a bitch you'll ever meet. Like, that's just who I am, right? I'm all about winning, Felix. I like you a lot, but if me and you were in a contest and we're playing another team and I've got to rip your ear off for me and you to win, you're going to be deaf, and
I
that's
love it.
okay.
I love
We're
it.
going to win. I've always been that way. So it's not about money. Money happens. It's about winning. It's about being successful, proving people said I couldn't. My in-laws are part of that. I met my wife in high school, and her family judged me because I lived in a trailer. They judged me because I didn't have money and I had a crappy car. That was a motivator for me to prove that, I'm better than that. I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to college. I had a kid in my teens with my wife. And I hated people telling me, you can't do this, you won't succeed. I think that was my motivation. The haters, the naysayers. My situation wasn't, looking back, it wasn't great, but that's what I know many more people that had tougher situations than me, including my wife. Her situation, at one time was way worse than mine was. But, everybody's situation's different. What you do with it is really what defines you. And I just look for a way to be bigger and better. And I hated feeling less than. I hated being judged because of money or success. I felt like nobody could hold me down, and I just want to prove people wrong. I like people to eat their own words. I love haters, but I love to not brag, but to be successful and turn them into fans. And there's nothing like that. To watch people say you can't, then you can, and then they're asking you for a job, or they're asking you to be on your podcast, or whatever it is. That's the biggest compliment to me, and one of the biggest drivers.
How has your mindset changed, if at all, from the time that you were young, living in that trailer park to now being successful and having, a huge company?
I think a lot of it now, I've got 4 kids and a grandkid. And so, I've slowed down a little bit about how hungry I am on things, meaning like I still have a hunger to be successful, but I don't have anything to really prove to anybody anymore. So I get bored. I get ADD. I'm like, how can I be challenged again? So then somebody's like, you'll never break 100 million sales. Okay, we did that. You'll never break 300. Okay, you're not going to go public. Well, we're working on that. You have to find something, at least I do, to challenge me. I have to be challenged or I'm going to get bored. I love what I do. What I do with the solar company, with Powerhome Solar, we have almost 1,800 employees. We're as strong as our employees are, right? So that's our base. I can be the face, I can be the leader, I can give us a vision, but we don't win and we don't grow unless they're doing what they need to do. It's because of them. And our culture is fantastic. They all have a mission to be part of an IPO one day or a gain share option one day. And that's what I want to do for them. So that's what motivates me right now, is getting to the next level for the employees. But as you get older, your motivators just change a little bit. It's nothing's ever good enough for me, right? I'll never feel like I've accomplished anything, because I feel like I always want to kick my goals up higher so I can keep going. As long as I can run, I want to run.
Now we'll talk about Powerhome in a second, but I just want to take you back also to when you're young. Was there ever a time where, you're in that situation, you're living in a trailer park, that you really felt down, that you felt like, man, this is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it out of here. I don't know if, having those doubts about, your future?
Yeah, absolutely. When I got kicked out of high school, last day of my sophomore year, for cussing out, a teacher and a student, inappropriately, where I was arguing with somebody and we had a shouting match, said some things I shouldn't. And it was the last day of school. So they're like, well, you're suspended next year. You can't come back. It's like, what? And I won a math awards, but then I felt like this isn't good. This isn't acceptable. Am I a loser? Like, I'm not going to school. Am I not going to ever be anything? And seeing the people around me, when something like that happens, and then you look at, your family members or friends' family members and friends, and you start to see, I don't want that life. I don't want to be working my tail off every single day and have nothing to show for it. I don't want my kids to yearn for more. And so that was a turning point. And then when I had my daughter, right? So I was 17 when Elizabeth got pregnant. She was 16. I was 18 when she had Hannah, and she was 17. And her mom didn't want us to have her. Her mom wanted us to give her up for adoption. In fact, I went to the hospital to go see her born, and her mom put Elizabeth under an alias name, and I didn't get to go into the hospital to see her born. I was up there taking pictures of kids that weren't mine. I mean, it was a dark moment.
Wow.
It was around that time that a switch went off, and I said, you know what? I got this. I'm going to go put a lien on my crappy car and go get an attorney and sue for joint custody, even though Elizabeth wasn't trying to keep my daughter from me, but she was a child. She was 17. Her mom was controlling everything. Her mom wanted her to give the daughter up for adoption at the time. She doesn't now, but I mean, she was scared for a 17-year-old. She didn't know any better. And I'm a big believer, whatever you do, you got to own it. So I'm not scared to ever talk about stuff. And she, that Elizabeth had Hannah, and then she moved in with her grandma, and because her mom didn't want her there. And, I got to see Hannah for the first time after she was a week old, and a trigger went off. And I said, ooh, I've got to grow up. I've got to, it's cool that I'm making some cool money and living on my own, but I've got to really take on the world. I've got a child. And so that was a huge motivator for me as well.
How did you grow? I mean, because you really, in a matter of moments, I think have to grow instantaneously to adapt to this new role, especially. So you're 17 at the time, correct?
Yeah, I just turned 18.
You just
and my
turned 18.
wife was 17. Yeah,
okay.
And Hannah was born.
And so, I mean, at that point, is it, in terms of the growth, I mean, is there also a little bit of panic? Is there
lots of panic, lots of anxiety, lots of stress, lots of what ifs. I was pretty close to my dad. I still am. He was like a mentor where I could call him. I used to call him every night and be like, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do? Because I was a young man. And my daughter does it now. I laugh. Hannah's 22 and she's got an 18-month-old daughter. She calls my wife every day. What should I do about this? What should I do? And I always giggle because I'm like, I remember doing that with my dad. Because when you're a young man or a young lady in the world, you got to have the right mentors. And my dad did a lot of stuff wrong, but he'd tell me like, dude, don't be like me. Like, he filed bankruptcy like 3 times when I was a kid. Like, he's like, don't be like me. And so I didn't want to be. He wanted me to be better. And, if I was stuck on something, I was able to call him. And if I wasn't, I had to figure it out. But I was never one that got into drugs or hung out with, I had some friends that probably weren't the best of friends, but I loved those guys. But I was never the one to try to fit in or try to follow. I was always a leader. I was always a trendsetter. I go to a party and people would drink and hang out. I'm like, I'm the DD. I ain't doing nothing. Right. I'm not, I always wanted a better life. And, Hannah, having my daughter, it just propelled that growth of I've got to do bigger things. And so I was pretty mature. This made me mature a lot faster. This made me feel like I was in my mid-20s, not 18. And I had to act like it. And I had to position myself like it for jobs that I applied for. And I think, that's what shows when your back's against the wall and you get nervous, you get scared, when resilience and tenacity kicks in and you're able to trigger that and say, what can I do now to fight back and to be different? I think that's what really tests what you're made of. And, I just fought back, said I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to let her down. Right. I had all these other motivators of outside influence. Now it's like, I don't want my daughter to think I'm a piece of crap. I want to be good and successful for her. And so that was a big motivator.
Now, what I also think is incredibly impressive and remarkable is that your wife is still your wife today, correct?
Yes. We've been together on and off. We always kid about this for 25 years. But married, this is our 20th year being married. So we have a 22-year-old. So we met when she was 14 and I was 15.
But that's also, I think what's even, to couple it with the fact that you hear many times stories of, at that point, kids really that have kids early on and, break up because of the stresses, because of X, Y, and Z reason. And you guys managed to stay together. Can you talk about that time when, she's 17, you're 18, and you guys have a kid together? And I'm sure that you guys are both figuring this out for yourselves, and you're both incredibly young. I mean, what's the relationship dynamic then?
I think God gives us what we can handle, or if you don't believe in God, whatever, things are given to you that you can handle. And living in the moment, it was hard as hell. It was stressful. We would fight. You said it best. We were kids raising kids. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were fighting. We were chaotic. We're screaming. We're breaking shit. We're trying to figure things out. We can't even be 18. We can't even be 20. We can't even be 22. We have to be an adult. Our mom didn't want to help. My parents tried to help. It was hard. And I wouldn't change it because looking back and what that put me and Elizabeth through only made us so much stronger. So the rest of the future of our life we could take on anything. And that gave me the strength and the tenacity and the courage and confidence to really take chances, to feel like, hey, if we can overcome that, we can do this. And we felt like we were always defying the odds. I remember when we dated before she got pregnant, there was 4 couples. We were all together, and me and Liz fought before she had Hannah. We always fought. I mean, we still fight. I mean, that's what we do. We argue and it keeps it fresh, right? We don't get along, but we love each other. And that's always been our deal. I remember we'd go out to the movies with friends and stuff, and people be like, y'all ain't going to last long. And so there was always bets that we'd be the first one to end. We're still together. None of them obviously are. And it's just crazy how things work. But, she needed me in her life. Her story's pretty dark. Her dad went away when she was 9. I mean, she had a tough life. Mom didn't really care for her back then, you can see. And I wanted her. So she needed me and I wanted her. And it was the perfect storm. And we were there to help each other really take it to the next level and get out of our own lives. And having a child together was our glue and our reason to continue and not quit. A lot of people have a kid and they think the world's over. We looked at it completely different. It's really perspective of how you look at things. We looked at it as an opportunity to be awesome parents and try to do great things, where some people would be discouraged. And there were days we were discouraged, like this is hard as hell. But, you get excited. And when you have a child, there's nothing like it. And so I can never explain to somebody who doesn't have a kid, this is what this feels like. But it feels like nothing ever in the world that anyone's felt until you have that. And then you're like, whoa, I gotta get my crap together. I gotta do great for this human being that's part of me. So that was our change. I mean, I think that's what God put Hannah in there to really align our lives in the route that it did, which only made us stronger. And I feel bad because when you're raising kids, you're not the best parents in the world. So at my 4th kid, I've got, 22-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, all girls. And then my son is 10. We're probably better parents to the 10 and 13-year-old than we are the 17 to 22-year-old. They say it all the time, but you get older, you get wiser. We're really awesome grandparents, just like my parents are. So that's what happens. You evolve, and the cards you get, you play to win.
And so are you guys living together at that point, right when you had Hannah?
No. So that was the problem. So she was pregnant, and her mom was like, you're not having this baby. And I'm like, she moved in with me, and then she wanted to make up with her mom. She'd go move with her mom. Mom stuck her in a halfway house. I went and, got there, and she ran out of the halfway house and came back to live with me. And then she wanted to live with her mom. And then so she went and lived with her mom. And so we were fighting about that because her mom didn't like me. Her mom, never liked me. Her mom thought I was trailer trash and everything else in the world. And so I talked to her the night before she was going to have Hannah, and labor was going to be induced. And she's like, I'm going to be down there at university at like 10 in the morning. So I go over there at 11 with my friend, and I see her mom and her sister outside. And then they see me and they run in. I'm like, all right. So I pull up. I'm like, hey, I'm here to see Elizabeth, and give them last name. They're like, she's not here. I'm like, I just saw her family. She's here. No, I was like, well, she's given birth to my daughter. She's here. I mean, so the lady felt bad for me. She's like, you can go up there and see the kids, but there's no names on there. And, you can take pictures or whatever. So I took pictures of like 8 random kids. Didn't know which one was mine. None of them were. She didn't have Hannah till 2. But that was a wake-up call of, I'm not going to let her mom dictate my life. I have a motto. I say it in my book that's coming out. I say it in the podcast. You got to create your own map. Nobody, nothing can choose what the hell you want to do. You get to, period. That's your right. And so I was like, all right, I've got rights. I'm going to do this. And that kind of bonded us together. Now, look, we were still kids raising kids. That's why we didn't get married till Hannah was 2.5 years old. We'd play house and then we wouldn't. And then we'd play house and then we wouldn't. I mean, we had to figure things out in our own life and build a foundation before we could really have marriage.
And do you feel like, this kind of chapter in your life was pivotal in, creating the businessman that you are today and the individual? I mean, how did that shape the person you are today? Because, you're around 42 or so?
41.
A young 41. You still have a lot of life ahead of you, but you've had a huge I mean, more than what a lot of people have in 80 or 90 years of life already. How do you think that's shaped you into the person that you are today?
I think all of the things I ever go through, hard, easy, great, all the failures, all the tough things I learn from, I get better from. And I wouldn't change anything. I have no regrets. I try to live life as optimistic as possible. I am hungry for success. I am, motivated by, defying the odds, but I wouldn't change it because it's, the pressure of I've got to support a baby and my girlfriend and we're kids. The pressure of her family thinks I'm going to be a loser. I want to prove them wrong and use my black Amex to fly them around the world and buy dinner all the time, which by the way, I still do every single time. I pull it out. I got dinner. It's cool. It's on me. I got it. I got it. So, little things that, you utilize to do that. And I mean, I had haters even in my family, and friends that, doubted me. It was just hard. And I don't stay angry, but you want to support yourself and be around people that are supportive and that want you to be better. I always think there's three kinds of people in life that are watching you do what you're doing. There's ones that truly are inspired by you and are proud of your success and want you to do well. And they encourage you and they want to learn from you and they want to share anything they know. Then there's people that are insecure about themselves that sit on the sidelines and watch you from a distance and they're just insecure. So they don't know how to talk to you or really support you. And then those are what I call, they kind of just grin fuck you. They're the real haters. They pretend they like you. And then they tell everybody they're only successful because of this. And they find every excuse and every reason to break down your success. And I love those people. And here's why. They're so worried about what I'm doing. Well, I'm worried about what I'm doing and I'm winning because they're not worried about them. They're worried about me. And so I've had to deal with that. Oh my gosh, you have a kid. Oh my gosh, you're not married. Oh my God. You see what I'm saying? I've had to deal with every aspect layer as a young man to an adult to, running a business. I mean, I ran a business. I don't have any college degree. I don't have a high school education. I'm teaching people how to sell that have college education. I was intimidated. It took a few bad months for me to lose my cool and get the brass to be like, yo, this is my show. You guys got to do what I want to do. So all of those things are lessons in life. All of our struggles, all of our pain, as long as you're breathing after it and your survival rate's 100%, it's just a lesson.
Now, what advice do you give to some of those young men or women that are, living in a trailer park or living the way that you did when you grew up that, don't have perhaps, at least now, the kind of mentality that you did when you were trying to make it out of there, if you will?
Well, they're letting their situation defeat them. And that's a choice. Nobody can sit here and blame everybody else for what you do with your life. Oprah was raped and had all kinds of issues, and she lived a wonderful life. People have problems, and everybody's problems are different, but they're different to each individual. Something that might not bother you could destroy me and vice versa. So you can't really look and say whose life's better or worse. What you could say is if you allow that to dictate your map, if you allow outside influence to control your destiny and what you're intended to do, then you've already lost. And everything you think and everything you say is probably going to come true. If you don't think you're going to get out of there, you never will. If you don't think you can get a good job, you just won't. If you don't think you can go to college, you're not going to. It's all mentality. And I think that for those people that aren't built that way, they need to start finding a way to get that way or start failing fast. Don't just sit in limbo. Try something, fail, learn. Try something, fail, learn. All of those failures, we always just talk about success. Tons of failure has led to my success. Trying to sell, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. You got to beat yourself against the wall until the wall has a hole, and then you keep going. And I think that the other thing I would say is success isn't money. I've been poor and I've been rich. And I will tell you, stress is a lot lower when you're poor. Believe it or not, it really is. And my therapist, I think everybody should have a therapist, always says, the more you get in life, the more depressed you get. I've never had depression in my life until about 8 months ago. Kind of been battling a little bit here and there. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? What is this feeling? Why do I feel like an outsider? And I'm like hovering. This is odd. My life's good. What's wrong with me? Something you can't control. I've accepted that. It's not that I'm broken. It's not that people are wrong to me. It's a chemical imbalance you've got to figure out. You've got to be able to master and take control of it, not let it control you. And, And so, and it's true. I asked my therapist, what do you think it is? She said, well, because when you don't have goals and things to hit, you get the house you want, you get the car you want, you got the business you want. What are you chasing? That's why a lot of famous rich people, they have a lot of depression problems. There's nothing they're chasing. So you got to find something else to chase. Success is filling your hole in your chest. Success is saying, I've got something here that is missing and I want to fill it in and be happy. You can be a teacher. Teachers are way underpaid, but you can be a teacher and be the most successful person on the planet because you're being filled and you're filling other people. That's what success is. That is getting to the next level. It's not how much money you have or what cars you drive. Those are just things that come with different levels of professional positions that you have during a success journey. But I feel like for me, whether I had a lot of money or I didn't, I'd still be the same person with the same mentality and the same charisma and wanting the same goals. That just happened to happen. And you got to give back. I believe good things happen to good people and you always got to give back.
I love everything that you just said. And I think that, there's so many different topics I want to hit, but I think it's really interesting to hear you, be open about battling depression for the first time about 8 months ago. And I'm curious if you want to get into it at all, but, because I'm sure a lot of people listening out there probably relate on some levels where for their, the whole first part of their lives, they never felt that way. And then, maybe they hit this point. For you, what was that point? I mean, I know 8 months ago was also around COVID season, so I'm sure.
I think that had something to do with it. I think not being able to have a normal schedule hit me. I think where am I going to go from here? I started this podcast that took off and it was like, I felt like things were coming too easy. I really did. Right. I felt like things were coming too easy, too fast. And I was bored and I was pinching myself and it was surreal and I was having out-of-body experiences. And I was like, something's wrong with me. And my wife would be like, you're being weird. And I'd be in la la land, listening to music and being in my own little zone. And I've never done that. I'm a happy-go-lucky networking kind of guy. And it separated me a little bit. And I can't explain how it happened. I can't find the one thing that put me there. I can only, assume that it was a few things that, I've never believed in weather depression. I live in Michigan now. It's gray. Maybe that's part of it. I know that bothers my wife some. That's why we're looking at Florida and back and forth between Michigan and Florida. But, or is it, not going to an office? I work from home and do the podcast from home and interacting with people. Or is it, my kids are growing older and I'm feeling old? Or the list goes on. Or is it at work? You want to take things to the next level? All these things that stack. And it's like, how do I get better control of it? And so when I realized that I was kind of an outsider and I was really edgy, I've always kind of had somewhat of a temper. It's helped me along my life. It's okay to have a temper as long as you keep control. But then I would go 1, 2, 10 all the time. And I really wanted to get gears in there and slow it down. And so I started talking. I've talked to therapists for 2 or 3 years, and not because I was depressed. I just like to talk to therapists, get some outside influence. I think it's good and healthy to understand who you are, how you can get better, to get different things you can teach yourself. I love that. But then it was like, hey, I think I'm depressed. Like, really? I was like, yeah, something's wrong with me. And I started explaining. They're like, yeah, it's a little depression. So I recently tried some medicine, but I think a lot of it, is COVID. I didn't get a chance to work out. I'm a creature of habit. If I can go work out and get my endorphins up and go do cryo, I feel like $1 billion. Mm-hmm. If I don't, I'm cranky, I'm grumpy. I feel like the Tasmanian devil. I want to eat someone's face, right? I have to let my energy out somehow. And that was getting to me. And not being able to entertain and hang out with people was getting to me. And my kids sitting in the house and not being able to do anything was all that was getting to me. I'm human. And finally, things opened up. We went to Florida a little bit, went to North Carolina a bit. Michigan starting to open up. Again, gyms opened. I got back on a schedule. I'm feeling a lot better. But it's a serious thing. My wife's had it her whole life, and I never understood it till 8 months ago. I was always like, man, just wake up, man. The glass is half full, And sometimes people can't do that. Sometimes they need a little extra support and help.
And I think it's ever more inspiring when, because so many people listen to you and look up to you, to hear you open up about it. And, I appreciate you opening up about it because I know that there are people out there that, feel like they're alone. And to hear someone who is successful like you going through some of those similar thoughts, I think is humbling to a certain extent. Yeah. My question for you next is, Powerhome has never been better post-COVID, from what I'm reading. from what I'm reading.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
For the people out there that aren't familiar exactly with Powerhome Solar, will you just give a very quick gist? I always feel like it would be disrespectful for me to do it. And then talk about this kind of pre-COVID, post-COVID world in your company where, you've almost more than doubled your employees in that time. I mean, it's kind of taken off to another level.
Yeah, and thank you. Basically, we give people an opportunity to own their power, not rent their power. It's the biggest message we've always done. And we started in 2015. This was my third business I opened up from the ground up. I did pretty good on the first two and sold it and made a little bit of money. But in this one, I didn't expect what was going to happen. 15 and 16, I lost some money. I gave all my money back. I sold my house. My wife was giving me the stink eye. The kids were pissed. I had my back against the wall again. I was like, something's wrong. And in 17, I was able to turn it around and finally started getting a paycheck after 2 years of being open and started to grow the company the right way. You take all your lessons that you've learned and the wins and the struggles, and you try to implement it in a new company. And there's still adjustments and some unknowns, and you got to overcome that. And we switched to American-made panels in 17. We doubled in size. We continued to grow. And then in COVID, when we finished 2019, we had about 700 employees, and we ended up with 185 million in sales. So we have grown this massive company. We've done in solar for 5 NFL teams, 1 Major League Baseball team, and a college. And we don't make money on the teams that do it. They get very little solar or enough to where it's just, it covers your cost. But we do that for credibility. So we're in a home, we're like, hey, we've installed solar at Bank of America Stadium, or hey, we've installed solar at Heinz Field. It allows the customer to go, oh yeah. Makes them feel a little better. It's all about a brand. Mm-hmm. And so in November of 19, they decided to make me the face of it. I didn't want to do it. We hired this ad agency called Sussman Agency. Alan Sussman's a genius. But we were going to hire Morgan Freeman, and we had this commercial laid out, and it was going to cost us $5 million to hire Morgan Freeman. And I laid out this commercial, and the guy goes, hold on, we're not going to spend $5 million on Morgan Freeman. If your company needed one more sale, who would you get? I said, me. They said, then we're going to put you in 25 million homes and you're going to be this. And I said, I don't want to be. They're like, no. I'm like, nope, I don't want to be. They're like, no, this is what you're going to do. And because you're going to do this, we can utilize that money to put you in more homes, and more people will have a trust factor. They're like, think of, the popcorn. You got order whatever his name is. And you've got Colonel Sanders at KFC, and you've got, the girl at Wendy's, and you've got, the list goes on. It's like, you need to have a face for solar. You need to have I said, okay. So they sold me on this, and we did the new campaign the end of 19. And right before COVID hit, things started to take off a little bit. We decided to go with battery and storage. And we're like, look, I'm a big believer everybody needs battery and storage so they can handle their time of use, and so they can charge their EV. And in case there's ever power outages, they don't have to worry about power being out. Everything they produce during the day, they can utilize. Well, we did that, and then COVID hit. And then we had a decision to make, because the first 3 weeks that COVID was hit, everyone's watching the news. Everyone's looking, what's going on? We're getting calls. I'm not kidding, Felix, we're on 6-8 hour calls with attorneys, state health departments, local jurisdiction. We're in 10 states and 16 locations. We're like, what do we do here? What do we do here? We're trying to make a decision. We had a heated argument and a heated conversation amongst the executives. There's 5 of us. And most of them wanted to close the doors and furlough everybody for 3 or 6 months to see what happens. This was in March, April of 2020. And it was the day after GM just took a pay cut. The executives took a pay cut to stay open. And I just couldn't do it. And this is before the unemployment stuff, which didn't help us because we're sitting with 700 plus employees. And this is before, all the testing they were doing, and, all the things that, and the companies get money and unemployment for the employee, you name it, before any of that nonsense happened. I said, we can't close. We got, Stacy, who's a customer service rep, and she's got to go home and buy diapers. We got Mike, who's an installer. He's the only provider for his family. We got Carl, who does this. We got Jenny. That we can't do it, dude. I'll tell you what we're going to do. The executives are going to go off payroll indefinitely. And that was a big pill for a couple of them to swallow. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to tell our vendors, including the teams, we're not paying you till fall. We're going to pause payments during the summer because there's COVID. We want to go ahead and try to make sure we can stay open for our employees. Well, we wanted to share that message with the employees because we didn't want them to think that we were going to stay open to be profitable. Like the executives just went off payroll. We were staying open so they had jobs. And we were an essential service. We followed all the guidelines, the masks, the social distancing, the hand sanitizer, you name it. But there were some rumblings in the company. Oh, they just want to stay open to do this. So I personally went to one of the offices here in Michigan, filmed myself walking through, telling them that we went off payroll, sent an elaborate email approved by the attorneys and our PR team to the entire organization of this is the plan and this is why we're staying open. And that fear is not my place to say who is scared and who isn't. Everybody's situation is different. You know, I've got a kid that's got autoimmune deficiencies. I was very nervous about COVID. There's some that didn't care. So I had to make sure that each one of them knew that it was okay to be scared and stay home and that they would utilize their vacation, they'd utilize their PTO. But after that, they would be what we call exempt, like non-active. So they're there, but they can come back when ready. We're just not going to pay them. So we rolled that out, and about 20% of our staff decided to stay home, and that's okay. And all of a sudden, you know, we did our new commercials with the battery. Things started booming. More customers wanted it. More customers were at home. More customers wanted to have solar. More customers were worried about the power going out. We were like, whoa, what is going on here? On top of we were adding employees like crazy, people that were laid off in other industries that wanted to be part of something great. We were losing certain folks, and we were able to get rid of C players and add A and B players in different departments. And it was game changing. And then that took off. And because we took the pay cut and shared it, there were sales leaders and directors that are like, hey, we want to volunteer part of our bonus on this check to do this and this. We were able to stay open and continue to grow and capitalize. And after a few months, we got back on payroll. And, you know, I'm glad to say as we ended 2020, we ended up with 1,700 employees and 385 in revenue. And we have a run rate the second half of the year of about 600 million. So, you know, we're continuing to climb. I think a lot of it is the battery storage option that we did. I think it's the world we live in now. I think it's the future. We're the only ones trying to get customers all in on everything we do, because we don't just do solar, we do energy efficiency, battery and storage, and the panels. And during that time, you know, in the end of 18, beginning of 19, I won the Entrepreneur of the Year award. They were like, you got to write a book. I was like, dude, I never read a book. And they're like, well, maybe do a podcast. So I started the podcast, playing it a little bit, and it boomed. It took off. I was like, holy moly. Well, podcast doesn't pay me, right? Powerhome pays me, but the podcast is a way for me to give back, build relationships, network, tell my story, get people excited. I had a guy, I talk about him all the time, Jeremy, who is a he details cars here in Michigan. He's done it for 2 years. The biggest compliment you can get, he comes up to me and he's like, hey, I've been listening to your podcast and I've been scared to open up a second cleaning detail truck. I've been scared. He said, but your message, you know, scared money don't make money. I said, I'm done. I'm in. And I went and did it, and it's successful. And it gave me chills. I was like, that's what it's about. You know, that's why I do the podcast. I'm like, this makes sense. So, you know, that started to take off. Powerhome Solar's growing. We're winning all these awards. So while I'm leveraging, you know, myself, my brand, Powerhome's brand, the best way I can, because the ultimate goal is one day to go public or have a lucrative event for all the employees and to help and empower as many people as I can to own their power and control their destiny, whether it be in business or life, however I can help, whether it be messaging, I do, you know, whether it be the podcast, whether it be, you know, a book I'm working on, whether it be working for us. You know, I just try to inspire, and I just try to build, you know, we have a motto at Powerhome Solar called BAM. It's build a movement, one panel, one customer, one employee, one vision, one mission at a time. That's it. And so we all have the same message. We all have the same way we're rowing for success.
I love it. And for people out there that you know have heard of solar or aren't really too familiar or have been contemplating getting it, I mean, what's your big pitch to them in terms of, you know, this idea of owning your power and, you know, why the future is in solar?
Well, I'll ask you, Felix, what's the longest, what in your home, what is the longest bill you have in your house?
Probably electricity.
Right. Most people say mortgage. They're like, oh, it's my mortgage. Nope. Mortgage has an end date, but your power bill and your water bill, they're forever. Right. And the interest rate on that, it just goes up. Whenever they increase rates, your power bill goes higher. So what this allows you to do is people think they're buying solar and they're adding a bill to their house. They're really shifting a bill. They're reducing their utility bill significantly, and they're taking that savings and using that to pay for a loan for solar that has an end date. It doesn't go up on them. It doesn't add interest on them. They don't inflate the rates on them. There is an end date and no penalty to pay it off, to where now instead of, people think I just got to go write a check for like $30,000 for solar. No, we ask our customers, how much do you pay for power a month? Well, $400. Great. If we can get it down to $100 and finance the solar for under 300, now you're saving money and you have an end date. Does that make sense? Light bulb goes off. Yeah. Then we talk about battery and storage. Why is it important? Well, time of use, power outages, EV, time of use is where the utility companies are going to go to you, Felix, and say, well, you got an electric car. We're going to charge you from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. double to charge because we don't have the power on the grid. Our infrastructure is not built for it. So you're going to have to pay a premium. Well, if you have solar, you don't. You produce the energy. You use it when you need it. So that is how solar works. The mindset of people's like, oh, it's super expensive. I got to write a big check. Nope. We're shifting one payment for another with an end date. Plus you're saving the planet and you're going green and we use American-made panels and you never become powerless. The list goes on.
Now, for you, how do you, even in the last, 8-10 months, the company's drastically changed and grown. Where do you go from here? Do you think about that?
Yeah, we're in transaction mode right now. Probably going to we have a minority partner. We're probably going to bring on maybe another minority, maybe a majority partner to help get us to the next level to do IPO or some kind of, lucrative transaction for the employees, maybe a strategic, happening. But, whatever we can do to grow the brand, we're in 10 states right now. We're going to add a couple more states this year. We're adding jobs, we're adding locations. We want to try to get as many customers that, to own their power and better themselves and put some money in their pocket as possible. In the world we live in today, people, they want consistency. They want to be able to know what they're going to pay. They want to be able to control things. And, you can control your power this way. You can't the other way. And so our company, we're going to continue to grow this. And, we're on pace. Our goal for 2022 is $1 billion in revenue. And, we think we'll do 600 or 700 is on the budget this year. So we know that being conservative, we'll do $1 billion next year. But why not us, right? Why not us be the biggest and best American-made solar company out there for all of our customers and all of our employees? Why not us is the message I always tell our folks. And there is no reason why not us. That's what we're on a mission to do.
So you said you're in 10 states, or can people in those outside states, are you in New York City or in New York, for example?
I'm not. So we're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Georgia, Tennessee. So it's 11 states effective tomorrow. We're in Georgia tomorrow.
And, what's that process like when you're growing to another state, right?
So we do a lot of things. People think you just open it up. You got to look at the cost of power. You got to look if the utility company is friendly. You got to look at the competition. Like if there's competition out there giving solar a bad name, we're not going to jump in that market. We're going to jump into a market where we can kind of create the education and how solar works and give it a good flavor. We also want to work with great utility companies. Cost of power has got to be high. In New York, it's atrociously high, right. but they do a lot of leases there. We don't really do leases. We do purchases. We want customers to own it. We don't want them to rent power from another power company. That's not what we do. And so that's why we stayed out of New York and California. But, we've got Georgia on the mind, Wisconsin, Florida, Texas. Those are the future states we do. But everything aligns based on, what is the population? How is the utility company? What is the cost of power and how much production are they getting on the PV side?
Now, for you as a brand, as Jayson Waller, as an individual, where do you see or hope, you are in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line? Do you think about it like that?
I do. So I always try to keep short-term goals of 30, 60, 90, and 180 days. But when I envision, is what I like to call it, what 3 years or 5 years or 10 years looks like. 3 years, I'm still doing what I'm doing right now, right? I'm still growing Powerhome. I'm not going anywhere, building the podcast, writing books, doing some speaking. 5 years, maybe the same. Definitely 7, I'm out. My son is 10, getting ready to be 11. When he's out, I think that's when I can hang it up. But I'm not going to hang it up till my employees get paid. Until something happens for them, I ain't going anywhere. So once that happens, then it's a conversation, but I'll be bored. I need something to do. I love the podcast, but I can only do so many of those. I do 2 a week right now, and then I'm on a handful a month. But I wrote the book. I've got 8 chapters out of 10 done. I don't write it myself. I have a ghostwriter because I can't write. I would misspell everything. Trust me when I tell you. And that's going really well. I love doing that. But I'm going to do a lot of speaking engagements. I want to do a lot of training seminars, similar like a Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins. I don't think I'll ever be that big. And I'm not going to say never, but that's, I just want to be able to make a difference and help people out there. And I'm not as flashy as Grant Cardone and doing that stuff. I do like Tony Robbins and the way he approaches things, but I think I got a little bit more sales experience than him and building companies up. So I just want to be able to take that and do some speaking engagements and helping businesses and individuals out in the future, and that 7-year mark going forward. And that's why it's important to build the brand. It helps Powerhome, but it also helps me in the second chapter of my life.
Now, I'm always curious, hopefully many long years of healthy, happy life ahead of you. Do you ever think about legacy? Do you ever think about how you hope to be remembered one day?
I do. And that's why it's so important to do the right thing by my employees, right? My family, I'm always going to do right by, and they're going to love me and remember me. But how you impact strangers or people that you don't see every day that you're not related to, how you impact people you're not entitled to impact to me is really building a great legacy. And I just want, all the employees to be like, man, they did what they said they would do. And, you see Microsoft did that, Amazon did, why not us, right? So I want to be able to do that because they're the foundation. I fight for them. I struggle for them. I grow for them. I do everything I can for the brand, not me, for the brand. Everything's about the brand, and which is the company, Powerhome. And I think as long as I can do that, and as long as I was able to help and inspire people, then I feel like I've done good on leaving a legacy. It's not about, being the most famous or being the richest or any of that stuff. As long as I've just empowered and impacted some people, and I did the right things for my family and my friends and the employees, I'm good. I don't need anything sexy, big, massive, anything.
I love it. People can follow you on Instagram at Jayson Waller. Bam. Website, JaysonWaller.com. The True Underdog podcast, of course, listen everywhere. And then if you're interested in getting some solar, Powerhome.com. Jayson, truly a pleasure and honor to have you on. When you talked about those different kinds of people that are there, I definitely fall into that first category of people that are inspired by you.
Me too. Isn't that great when you hear people do great? That's great that you feel that way. I love people like that.
In hearing your story, it's absolutely incredible. It inspires me. It motivates me. Continue doing you. I'm rooting for you. And I hope one day if you're in New York City, we bring you into studio and I get to meet you. But pleasure and honor to have you on.
Hey, when you guys change your governor, I come to New York. How about that?
I know it. Well, hey, I don't know when are the next elections, Josh? All right, 2 years. Maybe we'll get that happening. But
I'm still waiting for them to do the recount. I'm confused. Where do I go? I always joke about that. I'm like, I had to go to Atlanta and film the commercial, and I go, are they going to do a recount? Can we do anything?
Well,
I give up. It doesn't matter if Kermit's in charge. We're going to be okay. That's my feeling.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jayson. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Felix. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine. And if you have something to say, please leave a comment.